The throne was never made for rest. It was made for wait. Old Conan learns this every night when the hall empties and silence echoes between the stone columns. To rule is different from conquering. Conquering demands strength. Ruling demands invisible endurance. Torches burn slowly around the chamber. The flame dances, but it does not warm enough to drive away the cold born of responsibility. The king watches the emptiness before him and understands that for the first time in his life, he is not fighting external enemies. He is fighting decisions. His hair now carries strands of grey. The scars remain deep. But his gaze has changed. It is no longer the gaze of one who challenges. It is the gaze of one who calculates consequences. Because every order given spreads across the kingdom like ripples on a lake. That night, something different lingered in the air. It was not conspiracy. It was not imminent war. It was a silence too heavy, as if the world itself were waiting for him to close his eyes. And he did. The dream did not begin with monsters. It began with the throne empty. He walked through the hall and saw his own crown lying on the ground. No body, no blood, only absence. Then he heard footsteps. They were not the steps of soldiers, not the steps of enemies. They were steps echoing inside his own mind. A figure emerged from the shadows. It had no defined form. It wielded no weapon. It roared no threat. It simply observed. "King!" The voice was not sound. It was thought. Conan tried to draw his sword, but in the dream his arms felt heavier than soaked iron. "You rule men," said the presence, "but you do not rule what comes after." The scene shifted. He saw his kingdom years ahead. High walls, rigid laws, absolute order, no crime in the streets, no rebellion, no visible corruption. But he also saw empty eyes. The people obeyed. But they did not dream. Children trained with swords before learning poetry. Young men spoke of duty before speaking of desire. Stability was total. Freedom was measured. "You brought security," whispered the presence. "But security without risk kills the spirit." Conan felt anger. He knew chaos. He knew what happens when there is no order. He had seen cities burn from freedom, misused and unrestrained. "Order is necessary," he replied. "Necessary," repeated the shadow. "But at what cost?" The dream deepened. He saw his children, raised under his law, strong, disciplined, but distant. There was no rebellion, no loud laughter. There was respect, cold and absolute. Then the vision shifted again. An invisible enemy entered the kingdom, not through the walls, but through the mind, ideas, questions, whispers that absolute strength breeds absolute dependence. The people began to fear decisions more than invasions, and the king realized something painful. When a man becomes the single pillar of stability, his fall is not personal. It is structural. The shadow drew closer. "You faced gods who bleed," said the voice, "but you have never faced what cannot be wounded." The world darkened. No throne, no walls, only an abyss. From the abyss rose faces, ancient kings, rulers who believed they controlled everything, all swallowed by time. "Who are you?" Conan asked. "I am not war. I am not storm. I am not common death." The presence expanded. "I am the limit." The king felt something he had rarely felt in life, uncertainty. He tried to advance, to fight. But how does one battle a concept? How does steel pierce what has no flesh? The dream dragged him deeper. He saw his own death, not in glorious battle, but in a simple bed. The kingdom still stable, but divided about what to do next. Strong sons, but different, ambitious counselors. Without him the balance trembled. "You built order," said the voice, "but you taught dependence." Conan clenched his fists. "I taught strength. Teaching strength is different from teaching autonomy." The difference echoed like thunder. The dream shifted once more. Now he saw a world where he chose to rule with softness. Less rigidity, more concessions, more debate, unrestricted freedom. And he saw the result: corruption slowly returning, factions forming, merchants manipulating laws, armies questioning command. Without firmness, decay, said the shadow. The dream showed extremes, excess control, excess freedom, both leading to ruin but only by different roads. Then what is the path? The king demanded. The shadow did not answer, because perhaps there is no perfect answer. The final scene was even more disturbing. The underworld, not fire and torment, but inevitable silence. A throne of ancient bones, not occupied by a war god, but by something older, something that does not hate, does not judge, only waits. You have faced thunder, said the presence. You have defied seas, you have shattered divine blades. But what will you do when you meet what does not fight, only waits? Conan felt the weight of mortality more clearly than any blade against his chest. The dream began to dissolve. Before fading, the shadow left one final sentence. Your limit is not weakness, it is humanity. The king awoke. The hall was still dark, the torches nearly extinguished, his body damp with sweat, his heart heavy. He did not fear battle. He did not fear war. He did not fear betrayal. But now he feared something new, the fact that no man rules forever. The next day his decisions shifted subtly. He did not grow weaker. He did not grow softer. But he began preparing successors not merely to obey, but to decide. He reduced dependence, delegated real responsibility, allowed controlled debate, not from fear, but from awareness. The old king understood that absolute strength creates future fragility, and that even the greatest of barbarians one day reaches the limit where steel cannot reach. He told no one of the dream, but he changed the kingdom, because perhaps the true God who visited him was not of war, but of the inevitable, and no man, no matter how strong, rules the inevitable.